Hello, and welcome to The Wave from Ocean Reef, a podcast about the flow of life today and how you and I might ride with or swim against it. I'm Dan Meyer, Chaplain-in-Residence at the beautiful Ocean Reef community in Key Largo, Florida. For many years, I led one of the largest churches in America, hosted an Emmy Award-winning television news magazine, and moderated a forum for business and professional leaders. Along the way, I had the chance to work on a farm, in a maximum security prison, on an offshore oil rig, and in the world corporate headquarters of IBM. These experiences, plus a political science education at Yale and degrees in theology from Princeton and Fuller seminaries, have made me fascinated with people and with the various predicaments and possibilities that shape the flow of human life. I hope you'll find this podcast sparks your own thinking about that. So here's the wave for today. The story is told of an African king whose best friend had a strange habit of looking at every life situation, whether pleasurable or painful, and remarking, "This is good." One day, the king and his friend went out on a hunting expedition. It was the friend's role to prepare the guns used on the trip. But on this occasion, when the king pulled the trigger, the gun misfired, blowing off his royal thumb. When the friend remarked as usual, "This is good," the king bellowed, "No, this is not good," and promptly threw his friend in prison. A year later, while out on another hunting trip, the king was captured by a tribe of cannibals. Tying him to a stake, they piled wood around his feet and prepared to set the fire when one of the cannibals noticed that the king was missing a thumb. Being superstitious, they never ate anyone that was less than bodily whole, and so untying the king, they sent him on his way. As the king walked home, he remembered the event that had taken his thumb and felt remorse. Going to the prison, he found his friend's cell and said, "You were right. It was good that my thumb was blown off." And he told the friend all that had just happened. "Please forgive me for sending you to prison. It was bad that I did this," the king said. "No," his friend replied. "This is good." "What do you mean?" said the king. How could it be good that I sent my best friend to prison for a year?" And the friend smiled and held up his two thumbs. "Don't you see," he said, "if I had not been in jail, the cannibals would have found me with you." One of life's great truths is that the full meaning of an event cannot be grasped except over time. Sometimes all we can see is the brokenness of human choice, or the wreckage of poor decisions, or the agonizing tragedy of what clearly appears to our eyes to be nothing but senseless loss. In the moment of devastation, it seems betwixt insanity and insult to assert, as some people do, that God will somehow weave even these circumstances into the tapestry of his good purposes. And yet, strangely, we sometimes come to see that God has. The Bible is full of stories like this. A band of brothers sell their sibling Joseph into slavery, where he endures terrible privation and injustice. Strangely, however, this terrible treatment puts Joseph into situations that result in his rise to the role of Secretary of Agriculture in the greatest superpower of that era. When Joseph's brothers eventually come to Egypt begging for food in a time of famine, they realize that the government leader hearing their plea is the sibling they'd savagely sold so long ago. The brothers cower at the certain retribution to come. But Joseph responds amazingly like the king's friend in the story I told earlier. "No," says Joseph, "this is good. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done. Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. Moses, in another story, commits murder and flees into exile, where he meets God and learns to shepherd sheep through the wilderness, not yet knowing that he is being prepared by these things to lead a much greater flock on an historic exodus. Or the rooster crows over Peter's cowardice, but that morphs in time from a taunt at human failure into a testimony of God's power to work with imperfect vessels. It's admittedly hard to look at things this way, especially when we're in the middle of life's heartaches. My own family has been savaged by a massive amount of tragedy and loss through the years. I've hated it when people blithely offered me pat assurances that everything will work out for the good. Strangely, though, some of it has. I've seen enough surprising outcomes from horrendous beginnings that I've started to trust that maybe there is a greater purpose at work in these places that now seem such a mess. I do not believe that God is responsible for sin or the vagaries of a fallen world. God is not in the calamity-causing business. But I do believe that in the mystery of his grace, as St. Paul says in Romans chapter 8, God works all things together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. As you and I encounter loss, confusion, and fear in so many places these days, perhaps we can try looking more often at life through the lenses of the King's friend. Maybe we could dare to believe more in God's sovereign goodness. When our plans explode, when the wood seems laid around our stake, when we are imprisoned or wandering the wilderness, what if we could persevere in faith? What if we could keep looking for what God will yet do? Because even the horror of Dark Friday can come to be seen in the light of Easter Sunday. This is good. That's today's Wave from Ocean Reef. If you know of others who might appreciate this sort of content, I hope you'll pass it along or encourage them to find me on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, I'm Dan Meyer, hoping that the flow of life is good for you.